So yeah, feel free to go ahead.
Go ahead and start. Isn't the start the most awkward part, though?
Yeah, sometimes people in the hangout, they just get to know each other for a few minutes and, break the ice, that sort of thing.
That makes sense.
But that's okay. We get to give the honor, the privilege of people get to listen to us getting to know each other for the first time.
Right.
Well, I was curious to ask about like your background and stuff. You started your channel as a reviewer?
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny. I started my channel on a completely different channel. I had to move everything over to this one. And I started over there doing shitty AMV videos and then doing reviews and reactions. And then eventually branching out even further.
Well, it seems to be working really well.
Yeah, I guess so. Although I kind of, worry that if I do too many things, not too many people are going to be able to actually watch many of my videos.
Oversaturation?
Yeah.
I see. Well, I guess I've always had the position that if the content is meaningful, I guess I can't get enough of it. Like, I like listening to podcasts like Joe Rogan and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't listen to every single one, but I'm glad that there are so many of them that I can leaf through.
Podcasts are also really easy to listen to.
They are. I mean, and especially like we're just using voice. So this is somebody, they could be working and doing something in the background. Just enjoy in the background. There's nothing to miss. Because I don't have a lot of time either. Like I have a very tiny channel. I could like film myself drawing and stuff. But it's just so many monitors at the same time, and I'm trying not to dox myself, and I'm trying not to embarrass myself, and I find it way easier to do interviews like this, let's say, in the inverse, where I'm asking questions, let's say. But this is like a 50-50. It can be a 50-50 interview if you like.
Right. So what's your background? How'd you get on to the internet?
Well, as far as professionally, I've been drawing webcomics since high school. Well, let's say college. So that would have been 2003-ish. I had my website. A couple of friends and I decided to get together and do webcomics like Penny Arcade. That was really big back then. And yeah, we just wanted to draw webcomics, and all of my other friends moved on, they got jobs and stuff. And I kept drawing comics, and it's what I wanted to do. And years went by, and then I made a book and made more webcomics. And then there was the huge crash with, they called it OEL comic or OEL manga, original English language manga. And we all kind of spread out, us creators. And long story short is I've been trying to keep my comics going on the side while I've been doing other jobs. But yeah, I've just been all over the internet, putting my comics everywhere. I have a big Webtoon, well, used to have a big Webtoon called, I call it probl-o-matic. And I've been updating that as much as I could, or I had been, but there was a little bit of trouble we could talk about. And yeah, I've just been spread out all over the place drawing comics. Yeah, it's been almost 15 years. It's been a long time. But I never blew up, unfortunately. But that's okay.
It's very rare to blow up. It's the weird comics that always get very, very popular and pushed on those platforms. It's like all the yaoi, romance, weird stuff.
Yeah, I have sort of noticed that. I mean, I haven't been to Webtoon in a while, but at the very beginning, when I got recruited, there was creators like Sarah Anderson and Shenaniganson. They were the big heavy hitters, let's say. They had hundreds of thousands of readers already, probably through Reddit and stuff, and other platforms, I guess. But yeah, if you look at the majority of content on Webtoon specifically, it does seem to be sort of in the direction of yaoi. They seem to have a lot of that stuff. I was thinking of doing a yaoi comic as a joke. I'm still thinking about it.
Yeah, right.
Just to see if it blows up. Because I've heard that some of the content that they choose to feature, there's somebody picking what gets featured.
Hmm.
So it's always been a chip on my shoulder when I was on their website. It's still, I think my stuff is still there, but for a while, my comic was really blowing up. Like it has 2 million views or something, but it only has 6,000 subscribers. And it stopped growing at some point, just stopped. And I never could figure out why. But I think the only reason it grew was because I was updating it every day because I had an archive that I was just uploading every day.
Right, right.
And then as soon as I had to draw new strips, and I could only do a couple of strips a week, the growth just stopped. And I was like, whoa, what's the point of being on this website?
Right.
I don't know.
As far as the yaoi and romance stuff, I think it might just be because a lot of girls read web comics, but I'm not really entirely sure. I know that like romance stuff, girls get
Okay.
really, really into.
That's
Find out.
actually one of the questions I would have loved to ask about. Because obviously, like, that's not my thing, but I have heard, I mean, we know, like Twilight, obviously, but besides that, manga specifically, they love that stuff.
Oh yeah.
My theory is that they pick one of the guys to project themselves onto, uh, and they pretend that they're in the relationship. Is that totally off base?
I've never really thought about it like that, but
They just like it.
well, it's I don't know. It's this thing. I don't.
What a dumb conversation. I'm so sorry. We've only talked for 5 minutes and we're already talking about yaoi.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's like this weird sexual thing that I think that both genders have. Like guys like watching two girls making out, girls like watching two guys making out.
That's true. Yeah.
It's just this weird thing. Nobody really knows why. It's just like, oh, we're attracted to guys, two guys doing sexy things.
What's better than one? Two.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I guess that's all it is. But part of the reason, or one of the things I was really interested in asking you about, because I know, like, let's say they like to read that sort of thing. I mean, lady readers, let's say. But I've always said that that's an untapped market in America, and that's one of the things I'd love to talk about or ask about. Is like American comics. There's a lot of guy readers, and I just think that a lot of the subjects, like superheroes, power fantasy, that sort of thing, mostly appeal to guys. But I know for a fact, because of manga and anime, that girls and gals, let's say gals, they want to read anything, comics, anime. It's just that I think the subjects don't interest them.
So
I've always wondered.
yeah, that's interesting. I'm not really quite sure because I like all kinds of different genres of reading. Um, but I guess maybe there's just not enough romance yaoi comics out there.
I want to believe that, I mean, yaoi, if it exists and people love it, great. Let there be more of it. But, but like, all right, so Death Note, for instance, it featured Bishonen, pretty boys, if anyone's wondering. But it wasn't necessarily, I mean, there was a lot of L and Kira fan fiction, let's say.
Yes.
But really, the reason that a lot of people from any walk of life enjoyed it was because it was just a well-written comic that really appealed to anybody.
Right.
I'm interested in seeing how, like, my background, let's say, is with American comics. I've always been struggling to get American readers. But we know that in Japan, everybody reads manga. And it doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, how you identify. Sorry, that's my phone. I'll just go mute it. Oh, sorry. It's really embarrassing.
That's okay.
But yeah, any walk of life, there is a manga for you. There's cooking manga, there's lawyer manga. And it's not just genres. It's like any walk of life, there's a manga for you.
There's a lot more variety and I guess more creativity because there's a lot of weird manga stories that oh great, now I'm saying manga. manga stories.
Oh, I'm
That
sorry. If you prefer saying that, that's fine.
oh, it's fine. It's fine. There's a lot of different stories that you would probably never see in America just because they're so weird and out there. But people, they sell because people aren't afraid to try new things. And, maybe that's part of the reason.
Well, there's always been the theory that because Japan's such a small, relatively small place, like everybody's clustered together, what affects one city will affect another city way easier.
Mm.
So they're all like manga has just always been a thing in their culture since even before Tezuka. It's just pictographs have been a part of their language, I guess. So they picked it up easier. But by contrast, I guess in America, we've never really been able to shed this comics are for kids thing. There have been a few spurts where maybe that was possible. I don't know. It's all very like I barely know what I'm talking about, but it's just a feeling I have.
I can get that feeling sometimes. Um, Well, I guess now with the live action movies have kind of helped see comics as lesser for kids and more for everybody, but it's still always like the same genre of comic that always sells. And there are still some people out there who will only buy comics for their kids and they'll just assume that any comic is for kids and they'll end up picking up some really messed up comic and just giving it to their kid, not knowing what they're giving them.
Yeah, that's when I was growing up, a lot of anime that was available was like Ghost in the Shell, Akira, and really violent and sexy stuff that I just grabbed it from a video store not knowing what it was. And imagine my shock. But I never told my parents what I was watching. I just watched it secretly and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Right.
Where can I get more of this? It was so hype. And I didn't know what the difference was. Like, why couldn't I mean, my big one was Ghost in the Shell. That came out in 95, I think. But by the time I saw it, I was in high school. But in America, it just didn't exist. No American studio made stuff like this.
Right.
And and I guess my generation was when we had Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball Z, right? And Toonami started. Forgive me, I don't mean to sound patronizing. I don't know how old you are, but like when I was that age, let's say,
Right.
it was just becoming popular. Dubbing was just becoming popular. And we had all these internet resources where we would do fan subs and scanlations. And we would just like consume everything that came out of Japan. We loved it. And it turned out there's so much more we weren't seeing just because it wasn't on Toonami, let's say, or the Sci-Fi Channel, where we would have or animes like Dominion Tank Police or Bubblegum Crisis. And that's really like 80s and early 90s stuff. But that was before it blew up here. And I guess it got popular here, anime especially. Anime is really easy to watch now. But back then we had to like download it illegally. And burn discs and share it with friends and like pass it to each other at the lunch table like, hey man, do you have the disc of the latest DBZ episodes? It was very shady.
Yeah, it's great to see how everyone has embraced anime a lot more nowadays. Like the whole thing.
Yeah, there's also like a lot of the popular stuff, I guess, like Shonen Jump-ish, Naruto, One Piece. That's really popular, right? I haven't watched One Piece personally. But that's
normal,
I'm sorry?
That's fairly normal.
Well, it's the length that I find intimidating. There's so many episodes, right?
Oh yeah, and I'm almost up to chapter 1000, so.
In the manga?
Yeah.
Jeez.
It's great.
Well, the Shonen Jump formula, I've been to their offices and I talked to their editors, and they don't plan their books like they know what the ending is, but they actually don't plan the books in such a way that like, oh, this will be the arc where we do this. It's really based on the popularity. They only end the series when it loses popularity, I think.
I believe it. Yeah.
I couldn't quite get the editor to admit that. but what really happens is A, it loses popularity, or B, there's creator burnout, which these creators, a lot of manga creators, they have what, 4 or 5 assistants, and they have to put out like 18 pages a week.
Oh yeah, it's nuts.
And writing and planning these pages, it takes a lot of work. And Japanese people, of course, they have a crazy work ethic, but I don't know how the author of One Piece isn't exhausted, for example. But,
Yeah.
but I hear it's really good.
It's good. It's definitely, like you said before, it's definitely like slow. Like there definitely does not need to be certain chapters that exist. They just like kind of drag it out a little bit, and that's true of a lot of anime. They just like to keep you reading as long as possible.
I've always compared it to like a carrot on a stick. They just, like if you're riding a horse, you have a fishing hook with a carrot on it, and the horse is always going after the carrot.
Yeah.
So like I feel like a lot of these editors just keep the series going for as long as people want to keep consuming it. So I actually don't read the popular stuff until it ends, or when it's close to ending, because I want to know that it has a good ending, like the Game of Thrones nonsense, if you've heard of that.
Yeah.
And also Death Note, not to spoil anything for anyone, but I thought the ending was kind of weak.
I've definitely had that feeling for certain things. You hold on there for so long, and then you get to the ending, you're like, that's it.
Yeah, there's a certain burnout, but like limited comics, we're talking about comics too, but in general, storytelling, a novel, for instance, it's planned. Maybe, like say Harry Potter had an ending planned, but it was sort of like, if I'm going to take a road trip from New York to LA, I know that I want to end up in LA, but maybe I don't know what stops I want to visit. So I'm just driving and I say, oh, I'm going to make a right turn here and visit this town. Oh, I'm going to go to the Grand Canyon. So maybe they're planning the trip as they go, which is okay. But I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying exactly. I guess I prefer a story that I know is going to end well, especially if it's really long. I don't want to invest all those hours and then be disappointed at the end.
Right, and that's fair. I think like the road trips are fine as long as they're written well, as long as we enjoy the the stops on the way.
I think so.
It's fun, writing something organically and seeing what you come up with next.
Yeah, as a creator, let's say, part of the, I don't know, I guess you've got to interact with your audience to know if they're interested or if they're bored with, let's say, a certain story arc. I haven't written anything really long, but it's really important to get a feel for, are the readers interested in where I'm going with this?
Right.
I never want to feel like I'm wasting someone's time.
Yeah, I would say so.
I don't know. I barely know what I'm doing, but
hey, I don't have that great of experience myself.
well, I think if we have a lot of passion for reading a series, and if you ever wanted to write something, you would rely on your experience as a reader and know what you're interested in, and maybe go in those directions.
Right, that's fair.
I mean, the worst thing is if you get a commission. Like I've talked to publishers who, like, let's say I gave them a pitch. I won't name anybody, but I've been to their office and I'll go and sit down with an editor, and I gave them a pitch through email. And I'm talking with them and they say, oh, we liked your story, but what about these changes and these changes? And they're really changing a lot. And it's like, now I'm writing your story. I kind of don't want to write this anymore.
Right. One has to wonder if you really did like the story, if you want to change so many things about it.
I don't think they did. But really, an editor's job, I guess, is to earn money for their publisher or prestige. And I guess they were making decisions or changes to my story that they thought would sell more copies, which
Yeah.
it may have. But I wouldn't have been able to write that well, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Um, it's like they say, write what you know. But I think readers can sense when an author is burnt out. And there's so many stories out there, and it's such an honor for anyone to even pay you a little bit of attention when they're reading your story. So it's like, I need to honor that you're paying attention to my story. I need to give you the best I can give you, is my position.
Yeah, I think so.
And that said, I'm only going to put out crap from now on. I don't know.
Well, step by step, we'll get better.
I suspect so. I mean, there are some people who maybe just want to do a couple of books and see what happens, but this is one of my dreams, let's say, is to see comics as popular as manga in America within my lifetime.
That'd be great.
Why shouldn't it? Because let's say when I was doing OEL manga through a company, it was called Tokyo Pop. Have you ever heard of them?
Yeah.
They were doing a lot of original English language manga. Geez, I want to say 2003-ish to 2007, maybe even before that. And they had this contest called the Rising Stars of Manga, and you would submit a 20-page short story. And if the editors liked it, they would publish it in the volume, the tankobon. And then you would see they would publish it and put it in like Barnes and Noble and stuff. And a lot of manga publishers like Kodansha and Shueisha in Japan, they do this to find, it's a talent search basically. So then they put you in touch with an editor and then see if you want to develop a book. So they discovered a lot of creators this way or in similar ways, like Svetlana Shmakova, who did DramaCon, and a bunch of other stories that are escaping me. She was a huge graduate of that sort of process. And then anyway, so there was all these young creators in their 20s, let's say, who wanted to make manga. And for a little while, it was working. But I guess either through mismanagement or because of the bubble popping in 2007, 2008, a lot of publishers closed their doors, and they weren't able to take risks like OEL manga anymore. But anyway, some of us survived. Some of us had to go and find other jobs. But I think the dream is like, look, if we love something enough, like manga and anime, eventually it's going to have to turn into something. If you keep, like, I loved cartoons growing up, so I just drew. I just did what I love. And then you would think if you keep doing that for 10 years, 20 years, you're going to get good at it. And that's something that you can share with other people to get them fired up to make their own stuff. So maybe one of the questions is, like, how do we foster new readers so that when they grow up, they can make their own manga or comics? I'm rambling. I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. I definitely think that people need to be inspired to do something and, be told that they can do it. There's a lot of stifling going on.
By publishers, you think?
A little bit by everybody. It depends, who you are and what position you're in, people around you, and people editing, people publishing, people everywhere. Twitter.
Well, of course, I know that from your channel, you talk about like the news and what's going on and stuff.
Right.
But what I have seen, I guess, is that just people stepping on each other's toes too much. And there's a lot of talk and not enough books.
Right.
Maybe that's one of the bigger problems. Everyone has their grand vision of what I'm just going to say indie comics in general, American indie comics. So this is what it should look like. It's like, okay, well, why don't you actually put out a book and show me what it's going to look like instead of telling me your dream as I'm telling you my dream before. But I actually am working on books, and I want to see more good books. That's another key. They can't just be books. Like, we can't just do this for a year or 2 years. We have to put out some smash hits that are really, really good, that are must-haves, must-reads.
Right.
Because it's like a car. If you imagine putting a car together and then trying to turn the ignition key, and it's like, come on, turn on. And that's what we're doing to indie comics. That's what I've been doing to comics since I was in college. Like, I'm turning this key, like, come on, let's do it. Let's get comics started in America again. And it's like we kind of get the engine going a little bit, and then it breaks down again. I'm like, what? This is so annoying. Because Japan's kicking our butts constantly.
Right.
And maybe you disagree. That's my feeling.
No, I definitely get what you're saying. I don't know, man. Just people gotta get to work. And people also have to be consuming the comics that indie people are putting out, because help support them, but also get inspired yourself.
I think that's why Minecraft became so popular. I sound like a pothead. I'm so sorry. The reason that Minecraft became popular was because it not only was a creative game, but it encouraged people to be creative.
Right.
So it's like, you take this torch that I'm going to hand you and you make something now. So maybe that's what comics needs. It's not only I'm going to make this comic, but you make a comic now. Let's all make comics.
And I know that you're working on the Mary Sue comic right now. Do you have other like pocket ideas in the future?
Oh my goodness, yes. Well, you know what kills me is I've written at least 12 fully, like, they're done. The scripts are done. Like graphic novels, they're ready to go. Because all these years, like even when I was working with Tokyo Pop and all those people, I was making I have all these folders of like ideas and sketches and scripts and everything, and they're ready to go. They were ready to be drawn. But in those years, I couldn't get a publisher to even talk to me. And maybe it was that my art wasn't good enough. I couldn't say. Maybe, like, looking back on it now, like, my art was kind of crappy, but you know, I mean, how can you have master manga artists who are only in their 20s? I mean, if I kept making books all that time, I would have been really good at my age now. But yeah, I have a ton of stories that are just sitting there waiting to go. So this, you mentioned Mary Sue. I'm only calling it that because it was funny, but like the main character, like, that story is ready to go. It has been ready to go for years. But I just thought it would be funny to call her Mary Sue and see what people would say. I just posted a sketch of her one day because I was sitting on my couch drawing, and a lot of people liked it. And I was like, oh crap, maybe I should do something with this book instead of my other 12 that I don't know if people want to read right now.
Right.
But it's a killer for me to decide what to pick, because like my full-time job is not comics right now. So, and comics take so much time to produce, especially just for one person. I don't have assistants like manga artists do. So if, let's say for instance, I'm planning Mary Sue and it's 55 pages, the first 2 issues. And I'm trying to decide, like, when am I going to launch the campaign? How much do I ask for? It might, like, if I worked on it full time for 2 months, maybe I could do it in 2 months, draw it. And then I could do an issue per month, but only if people are interested in, you know, buying copies. But then there's also questions of, like, how much do you charge for a copy? Because I think a lot of indie books right now are on the expensive side. And they're really hard to get. So the business model has to be fixed. Like, how do you get the money in the pockets of the creators so that they can create their books full time, so that readers can get an episode every month, let's say, which I think is too slow, but it can't be helped. There's a million business questions and logistic questions. It's just a nightmare. But I guess that's what we have to do to make this work.
Right, and it's also great that we have a lot of comic creators and publishers, you know, talking to each other on YouTube and having these live streams and giving advice and things of that nature.
Yeah, maybe part of the reason why people don't do it more is they just don't know how to do it. Like, I didn't know how to publish a book until maybe 7 years ago.
Right.
Because I gave up on publishers talking to me. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to self-publish. That's it. And so it's harder, but it's more rewarding. Maybe more people would do it if they knew how.
Right.
I wonder what other obstacles are in the way of, like, if the goal is comics, indie comics growing. Like the big publishers in America, right? They say the big four. But I know Manga is making a big push. Like Viz, have you ever heard of Viz?
Oh yeah, I've heard of it.
They just announced a program where they'll look at people's portfolios. And I think Viz is owned by one of the big manga houses in Japan, but I don't remember which. Shueisha, I think.
Shueisha.
Yeah, the people who do
Definitely a big
Naruto.
one.
I think they own Viz now, I think. Because Viz was in trouble, but because they were publishing Naruto, they survived.
Huh.
But anyway, so Viz now is doing, I think, a talent search for American creators, which I think is excellent. But there's a million logistical problems with working with publishers that are just not a problem if you're working as an indie creator. The downside as an indie creator is you have to build your own audience.
Right.
That's one of the many downsides.
Well, it's all about the social media, connecting with others, spreading yourself out there, keep on posting.
Yeah. And it's funny because if you're a really introverted creator, you'll spend all your time making your books, but no time at all getting to know people. I don't know if that's true. I think maybe that's a unique roadblock for someone like me. The really outgoing people have a huge advantage. No? I'm sorry. I was talking to myself.
It's okay. I was just saying, I used to be extremely introverted, even when I was starting my YouTube channel. It's just one of those things that eventually grew as I grew up.
Well, maybe someday I'll be a brave little toaster and I'll be able to talk to people. Like I've been at conventions where you have your books in front of you at a table, and I think nobody came to my table because I looked so miserable. Like I would have my head down drawing. Like, no, don't talk to me. Don't stop at my table. I'm so embarrassed. Get away. I hate you all. And it has a snowball effect because I won't sell anything if I look like a miserable potato.
Right. You got to wave and talk to people and bring people in.
And I got to, shave and bathe. And that's just too much trouble.
Right.
I don't need that.
Going to the con in your pajamas.
Yeah. Well, I've seen that. And among the many outfits that you see, that like pajamas is not a problem, at least at the cons I've been to.
Right.
I mean, well, I won't make that joke. Yeah, that's another instance where you really have to just be super brave. Selling your own book at a table is so scary. But that's another thing that I'm rambling. I'm so sorry. I was going to talk about conventions some more, but if you have things that you want to talk about, feel free.
Oh, no, it's okay. I don't mind giving the reins to someone else.
Well, all I was going to say was that it's among the many problems for creators in America is even getting into conventions is so hard to have a table. So like here in New York, I live in the New York area. We have something called New York Comic Con. And if you're an artist, an indie artist, you basically can't get a table. Like they have a little tiny artists alley, and then the rest of the show floor is all the big publishers and movie people and video game companies. It's this giant pop culture event. And all the comics people are in this little closet off to the side. And then it's like, oh, if you want to be an indie creator, why don't you sign up for this other convention that nobody's heard of in New York? And but anyway, that's not the only convention. But to get to a convention to sell your books, you're talking like as a self-publisher, you spend hundreds of dollars printing your own book. You have to spend hundreds of dollars getting a table, a hotel room, traveling, food. You've spent a couple of $1,000s just to get to the convention, and maybe you'll sell a few dozen copies of your book. And it's this nightmare of like, how do I even make this a viable I think that's another roadblock for stopping comics creators. If that's the theme of the conversation right now, is what's stopping us. I think not only morale but cost is enormously difficult, because you have to, and that's why I think the Indiegogo option that a lot of people have been using lately is pretty useful. Actually, you collect the money ahead of time. You can spend that money on books, shipping, all that stuff, and the rest is profit. It's not a lot of profit, but maybe that's why the books are so expensive, and maybe there's nothing that can be done about it right now. Like in the old days. I'm sorry.
Sorry, were you going to say something?
Yes, but I have the worst habit of talking over people. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. Part of it is I don't know when to start talking.
And I'm a blabbermouth, so please feel free to just say veto. George, silence.
Okay. Well, part of it is
Well, actually, I was gonna just kidding.
Thanks.
Sorry.
I don't know. Adam, he has a table during Free Comic Book Day because he knows the owner of the comic book shop, so he can always sell his book there. And, you know, another part of it would be making connections, getting to know, I guess, important people who could possibly be good friends.
What's true, networking is really important.
Oh, yeah. Because he just sells his book there on a table for free because he knows the guy, you know?
At his local shop.
Yeah.
Huh. See, I need to get to know my local shops a little bit better. I have this thing, this worry. I'm going to write that down. Well, I keep notes because I don't have enough brain RAM. But
makes sense.
My local shops, I have this terrifying, crippling fear that if they, like, the reason a lot of people knew who I was a couple of months ago was because of this thing that happened to me on Reddit. And like a lot of people were saying things that weren't true about me, let's say. And if the local comic book shop owners looked me up, I'm terrified that they're going to think things about me that aren't true. And they'll either pull my books or like do something weird, like milkshake me. You've heard of milkshaking?
Yes. Oh.
I'm so worried, but like maybe I shouldn't be worried about it, and I should just do it because it's not true anyway. Like
Right.
I want to go to my local shops and introduce myself. So I'm hoping, like with this Mary Sue book, for instance, I'm hoping that it'll look so good, fingers crossed, that they'll just be, I'll hand it to them and they'll say, oh, yes, I'll take 5. I want to sell this book. And I'll say, great, cool. And I won't say anything about reputations. But if they say, hey, wait a second, I looked you up, I'll be, no, it's not true. None of it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, man. Get some business cards together. Just start flinging them at people.
Like Gambit. I think that's what we got to do. That's one of the things. The downside also with local shops is they take a pretty significant cut of your profits too. But if you sell thousands and thousands of copies, I guess you're still going to make profit. Like Jeff Smith on Bone. Have you ever read that?
Yeah.
So he, late 90s, I want to say, him and his wife were the only 2 people in this company, and he was making his books, and she was calling like literally every comic shop in the country and sending books to them to sell. And they did that for like 10 years, I think.
Wow.
I don't know what their profits were like, but I think there was a documentary on it if anyone wants to look it up. But yeah, that was indie comics back then, and it was so hard.
Right.
But in America, I guess if you don't work for the big 4 publishers, depending on how you calculate it, as an indie creator, the only option now is what we've been seeing lately with the Indiegogo stuff. But the thing that scares me is that a lot of the most popular series are getting popular because there's drama surrounding them.
Oh, I hate that.
Or drama as it affects virality, if that makes sense. Like to go viral, you have to stir drama, maybe. It kills me.
Yeah. It's even true of YouTube. I know that a lot of people will start up like fake drama with each other just to get more popular,
Mhm.
and it's hard to watch.
It feels really juvenile, but also it takes the attention off the work itself, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, who do you side in this battle? Uh, be sure to throw money at the champion that you want to win this fight. And then the book comes out and it's like, some wet paper in a plastic bag. I'm like, what is this? I guess this is the book I ordered.
Right.
I don't know. I'm just being silly, but I don't know. I really wish it was just as simple as the best work wins, but maybe that's never been the way it's been. I think of Japan. I don't know. The most popular series. I heard that before Dragon Ball Z, well, Dragon Ball, before it really blew up, the manga market was really struggling, I heard. And they needed a champion to come and bring it back to life. So there was this small pocket of time where Akira Toriyama just breathed new life back into manga. I don't know if that's true.
Hmm.
But apparently even they were struggling.
Right. I think every industry is going to struggle at some point in time.
Yeah.
It's all about just improving and advancing forward with something new.
So do you feel that American comics have grown stale in general, or do you think they're waiting rebirth?
Um, Probably waiting of rebirth. You got comic book stores going out of business, and that's a big problem.
Yeah.
And there's a there's a lot of bland comics out there, as if they're not even trying anymore. It's kind of sad.
So I've heard these rumors with like Marvel and DC. I actually don't read superhero comics, mostly because I find them boring. But is that everyone else's opinion now that it's just the same stuff over and over?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have that opinion that it's just too much of the same. And, you also have the social justice stuff, which just makes comics a lot more predictable.
Yeah, they're more like morality plays than stories.
Right, right.
I heard that Vertigo was going out of business. Um, did you ever read like Sandman and that stuff?
No, I wasn't big on the Vertigo,
Okay.
but I can understand why there are rumors going around that DC is going to cut Vertigo.
There were a few years when Vertigo was really cool. Maybe late 90s, early 2000s. Um, and they were basically telling all kinds of fantasy types of stories and sci-fi and horror. Um, and it felt like, whoa, we're doing something different than the usual superhero stuff. And I was really excited. But I guess for whatever reason it didn't work out. But that's when the manga market started blowing up in America. There was Viz Media that we talked about had a imprint called Pulp, where they would pretty much publish like rated R manga. It was really bloody and filled with sex and stuff and cursing. And I would actually in high school skip school and take a bus to the city to go to this comic shop in New York City called Midtown Comics. And that was the only store I knew that sold tankobon that were translated into an English. And it was full of blood and stuff and action, whatever. But I had never seen comics like that before. And I guess heavy metal was a thing from France. But I was just amazed. Like, why have I never seen these comics anywhere? And why, when I go to my local comic book shops, I had one in the next town over where I lived, they never had any of that stuff. I was like, where's this coming from? I think Dark Horse actually published Blade of the Immortal back in the day. But that was the stuff I was interested in. And that was like, I knew then, and I know now, there are comics that people want to read. They just don't know how to get a hold of them.
Right.
Jeez. Get off my soapbox now. Oh, dear. Sorry, what were we talking about before that? Oh, local shops closing, maybe.
That makes sense.
Oh dear. I should have prepared better. I should have had like questions to ask and stuff.
No, I never prepare for anything.
Well, we can still make this a good interview back and forth. I still do have questions to ask, but I don't want to take over the whole conversation.
Okay. Well, any topics you'd like to discuss specifically?
Well, selfishly, part of the reason why I was so looking forward to talking to you is to understand demographics. Like, I was amazed that you even knew what Mary Sue was. And I was like, wow, I actually have readers. And here's somebody who really like you review a lot of stuff. I was like, wow, this might actually be a thing. Like this book might actually be worth reading. So I have to try to do a good job on this. So I was going to ask about the stuff that you've read of mine and basically learn about your tastes and how I can improve my work, that sort of thing.
Like your female editor?
No, not change the story for her sake. No. But
No.
like, okay, for instance, yesterday I was talking to somebody on Twitter and they asked me about the age demographic, like who's this book for? He showed the book or showed concept art for Mary Sue to his niece, and his niece loved it, he said. And he was asking about the age. And I was like, oh, it's probably going to be PG-13 because I want to have like action and romance. And for instance, there's a scene, I don't want to spoil it, but like a shower scene, let's say. But like maybe I wouldn't include that, or maybe I would hide it better if I knew that younger readers were reading, because I want people to be able to give this book to other people. Like part of comics, I think part of the joy of comics is letting people borrow them. And I would be horrified to think like, oh, he wanted to give this book to his niece or something, and it turns out she was too young to read it anyway. But I wouldn't want to lose a reader, a potential reader, because I thought, I was aiming for a mature audience, but it turns out the younger audience would be better to aim for.
Right. It's a tough call to make when it comes
Yeah.
to that stuff.
I'm sure there's a balance somewhere. Like, I don't know, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where to start asking my questions.
Well, it always helps to hit like multiple genres, like 3 or 5. That's what
Yeah.
we do.
Well, with anime, it can be so many different genres. Like I'm watching Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood right now. If you've ever looked
Yeah.
at it. Yeah. It has so many feet in different genres. Like it is horror, it's action, it's comedy, it's sad.
It's just a sad genre.
I guess. I mean, it's tragic. Let's say tragic, dramatic.
Okay.
It's sad with the mom and the brothers, they're sad and whatever, but there's also a lot of scary stuff. Anime can be so many different genres at the same time. So as I was planning this book, I mean, I have the script written out, let's say, and I have outlines and notes and all these things. And initially, like actually, the comic was just a joke, as I drew it as a Metroid fanfiction joke. I guess I won't spoil the story right now, but I could actually. Hashtag spoilers. If anyone doesn't want to hear this story, you could skip ahead. But the joke was that they were on this Samus and this guy. You're familiar with Super Metroid? I'm sorry.
Fairly familiar.
Oh, maybe it's not a funny joke then. But basically, it was a joke where she was forced to choose between her heart and her job, and she chose her heart, and she regretted it. And so it was just a joke. Like I was just drawing a joke comic. But then I thought, the story is so good that I can just turn it into my own series. So I took the idea of, she has a power suit, but it's not a Samus suit. And then I built the world around her. And I turned it into this series that has just been sitting on my hard drive. And it has action. It's funny. It's got a little bit of tragic romance in it. And yeah, when I start posting stuff, like people seem to be really interested, and I'm surprised, but also like, oh, I actually might have something here. So demographics wise, like going back to the initial subject that I was curious to ask about is I not only want, like, I know what guys want. They want action, they want, boobs, whatever, fine. And that's fine, I guess, but I also want to, I think that's only half the potential market in the English speaking world. I want the other half. Like, I know that they watch anime. I know ladies like anime and manga, and I know what kind of like subjects they're interested in, but I want to make sure that this book at least can be readable for them. Like, I want my wife to read this book and to enjoy it, not just because, oh, George made a book, I have to read it. I want her to actually like it.
Well,
So,
sounds readable to me, based on what I know.
well, is it okay if I ask about that?
Go for it.
Like, based on what you've seen, like what's your impression of, does it look, I don't know. I feel really bad asking this live on air. Like, I don't think anyone's curious to hear about this, but like, what kind of directions are good? Like, what do you like in an anime? Let's say about, oh, did you ever see Cowboy Bebop?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Um, Maybe I can think of a better one. Not quite cyberpunk, not quite space opera. Bubblegum Crisis, maybe. Mech animes.
Mech animes, oh god, there's so many.
Well, what kind of stuff are you into in general?
I'm into a lot of different stuff, so I'm kind of a weird case. But I always enjoy like some shitty romance comedy manga, and then there's adventure. I always love.
I actually, when I was in high school, I read a lot of shoujo manga. What are some of your favorite series?
Um, My Love Story. What is it? Masamune's Revenge. There's I don't know. I guess I watched it a lot. Sorry, Children.
This looks good. I gotta look it up. My
What are
love
you looking
story.
up?
My love story is the bodyguard looking guy.
Oh yeah.
What is it?
It's kind of funny. Basically, like he has a best friend who's really good looking, and then he's a big gorilla looking guy, so he never gets the girl that he likes.
Uh-huh.
And then one day there happens to be a very cute girl that he likes, and he's worried that she likes his best friend and not him.
Uh-huh.
And it turns out that she likes him all along. Woo.
This looks has it been translated?
Oh yeah. Got
I'm going
an anime, English dub, and everything.
Jeez, that's funny. I love a good premise that, like, I just saw one image and then I was like, okay, this is funny. I want to read it. My favorite back in high school, have you ever heard of Karekano?
No, I have not.
That shows the generation gap. I'm not going to say I feel so old. That's not true. Karekano, His and Her Circumstances, it was called in English, or a series called Mars. They were both published through Tokyo Pop. Well, I guess it's not worth mentioning, but these were shoujo comics. And as a guy, I still read them. I liked the romance aspect. I think romance can be a lot of fun.
I think so too.
And I think it's ironic too, because a lot of American comics are not. Maybe they try to include love scenes, but they're so poorly written.
Well, part of the problem is they're trying to do it on the side, and sometimes you just can't always have something on the side. Otherwise, you're not really developing the romance between those two, and it's just like you're just telling the audience that they're in love rather than showing it.
Okay.
That's what I feel like anyway.
No, it's true. I think also the writers they're not romantic people. Like, one of the biggest strengths of shoujo manga is that it's written by women. So they know what they want to read.
That's
Like,
fair.
for instance, Jane Austen novels, right? they blew up back in the day, and they're still relevant. People still like them, and I enjoyed reading them too. But it was interesting to see a love story told through the eyes of a lady creator. Like, these are the things that she thinks are valuable to put in a story versus the same story of, I don't know, Pride and Prejudice written by a guy. What would the differences be? I find that fascinating.
Right.
I don't know. Like, I have, like, for instance, Mary Sue or Problematic. We could talk about that if you are interested.
Sure.
But there are romantic elements in the series. If anyone doesn't know, I have a web comic called Problematic. Um, but I have the main character is like this forever alone kind of navel gazer, and the humor for him is that he can't even get girls to talk to him, and he's cripplingly shy, and his best friend is a girl who hates him, and it's and then there's this other married couple who, like, for instance, the wife will say, like, I'm selfish. I don't know. She says, she lists all these things like, I'm ugly. I don't see why you would like me. And the husband says, well, I love you anyway. And she says, oh, in that case, we have to break up. Because, like, I guess she has a thing where she hates herself, let's say. And the only way I could write that is because, like, those people exist. As opposed to, like, an American comic where I guess, like, a muscular dude will just grab a bodacious babe and, I don't know, they'll be in a pool. And he'll be like, I've always loved you. I don't know how that comic would go. He's like, I've always wanted you, but our jobs are more important than our romance. And he goes, no, babe. Look at my muscles. I don't know. That's like any Marvel movie or DC movie of the past decade, right? I think that's the best romance they've been able to pull together. Am I talking crazy? I'm
Nah,
trying to think of
I get
examples.
that. I get what you're saying.
Gamora, you're really hot. We should make out. I'm sorry.
No, I see where you're coming from.
Okay, so the feedback that I'm getting, and I'm writing these notes down, is to make sure not to miss out on the romance, subplot, or main plot opportunity.
Right.
Okay.
That's a big part.
I think so. It's maybe not going to be the main thing, although it is driving the plot. I'm fighting the temptation to just tell you the whole plot of Mary Sue to ask. It's like an exclusive preview for everyone listening.
Yeah, it's like the big reveal on Dan Fan's live stream.
I could tell everybody. I don't know.
It depends what you want to do.
I want to hear your opinion.
We could also, do private messaging if you don't want to do it here and now.
Well, maybe I'll tell you. I'm going to take a crazy risk. I'll tell you right now, and I want to hear your opinion if it's romantic.
All right.
So, the main character, whose actual name is Rosemary, not Mary Sue, she is a bounty hunter in this, like, weird space situation, and she is on a luxury cruise with her boss, this engineer who has made a power suit for her, and she's bored, and she's this very derpy character, naive, always getting up in people's business and annoying them, and she's always breaking things, and nobody wants her around because she's just like this giant bad luck symbol. And I thought it would be really funny and ironic because everyone has heard of the Mary Sue trope, in the sense that, like, everything's perfect for them. They never make any mistakes. They never earn their victories. But this character, despite her name, is the derpiest derp, and she breaks everything. So she's traveling with her boss, and the boss, and also foster father, long story. And he just wants nothing to do with her. Go away. I'm trying to get these babes at the pool. Go leave me alone. So she goes and talks to this guy who's like a space janitor on the ship. And they've had a little kind of romantic, like back and forth for a couple of weeks, let's say on the cruise, space janitor and her. And, she, in order to get his attention, she's like, oh no, I'm spilling something on the floor. And she's spilling crap. And he's like, can you stop, please? I'm doing my job. And like, she just wants his attention, but she can't help but bother him while he's at his job. And you can tell that there's like a cute little, back and forth with them. And so he says, why don't we talk at the ball? And we're going to go to the ball. And they go dancing at the ball, and it's romantic, and they talk about their feelings, and it's nice. And half the comic is just them talking. And so at the end of their conversation, near the end of the conversation, they're dancing. And he looks off to the side and he says, actually, I heard a rumor that there might be pirates on this ship. And I think I might have just seen one. And he has to go running off. And so she's like, oh no, what happened? And, my date disappeared and we were going to make out. It was going to be fun. So she's again disappointed. So the pirates start attacking and they start stealing things from people. And all of a sudden, this giant power armor beast comes down and starts fighting with the pirates. And it's her in her suit because she was on vacation, but she didn't actually want to fight. They just brought the suit because they needed a power armor to like carry their luggage for them. And she's not ready for a fight. She didn't want to fight. But anyway, so she fights the pirates and she's going to blow up their ship. They're going to try to steal everything. She's aiming her gun at the escape ship. And it turns out that the space janitor was working with the pirates the whole time. And she can't pull the trigger. She doesn't blow him up. And then they all escape and it's like, what am I going to do? And the whole rest of the comic, if the series keeps going, is I now have to track him down. But what happens when she tracks him down? Is she going to arrest him? What's she going to do? Like, is he really working with them? Was there more to the story? So their romance is part of the story, but it's like also takes place in this huge world with bounty hunters and mech suits and all kinds of stuff. That's my pitch.
Okay. You did give out like a huge portion of the story right there.
Enormous, but really it's an introduction to what's otherwise, it can be a huge, huge story depending on how many people want to read it.
Right.
Now, the reason I say that is because that was the Samus Metroid comic that I initially published. So like she aims the gun at like her gun arm at the ship, doesn't blow him up, and everyone's like, why didn't you shoot? And she goes in her room and turns into a morphing ball and cries in the shower.
I see.
Oh. I thought it was funny.
Right. It's a little bit funny.
Well, that's all I got.
Okay. Everyone now knows the great secret of what is this Mary Sue comic.
Well, it was already a comic, so I don't feel bad. No one's going to care. I think really what it's just going to be a fun introduction story. And if people want more, then we can figure out what we're going to do about that. But,
okay, so kind of like a first issue type deal.
Yeah, I wrote it to be one issue, but it actually, when I did all the thumbnails, like script-wise, it was 13 written pages. It was initially 17. And then as I started to trim it and plot it out as thumbnails, it turned out to be 55 drawn pages. So what I'm going to end up doing, I think, is just offering both issues as one project. So when I do the Indiegogo in a couple of weeks, maybe, it's going to be, it's just going to be for both issues. So it'll be one price, you'll get both books. And when there's enough books, like let's say I publish six issues, I'll collect those into a single volume, and then we'll just keep going until the story ends. It's not going to be one of those things where it keeps going forever. There is a definite ending.
Okay. So that sounds good. You got like a whole printer picked out and everything?
Yeah, I'm going to use the printing people I usually use. they did my book Problematic, which I'm waiting for the copies now. So they sent me a proof copy, which looks amazing. And hopefully the prints are going to look just as good and the printer guy won't be asleep at the wheel. But
Right.
it has happened in the past.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to use them again. It's going to be in color. It's going to look real nice. Good quality paper and all that good stuff. And I don't know, fingers crossed. I mean, if I don't use them, I'm sure there's a million printers I can use.
Right.
And then, of course, I'll offer a digital version, like a PDF version, like what I sent you for Problematic.
Mhm.
Because that's obviously there's no shipping involved, and that's going to be way less expensive. If people just want to read it, you can get a PDF version.
Yeah, I think digitals are always good because it costs you nothing. All you have to do is remember to send it.
Yeah, the downside, of course, is piracy, but
Right.
in a way, for a small creator, piracy can be helpful. I
In
wonder.
a way, because at least it's being shared. You'll still get noticed.
Maybe. Yeah. Like a lot of people, when I was reading Death Note, I'm ashamed to say it was through scanlations.
Hmm.
Um, because they were putting them out as the series was being printed in Japan.
Right.
And I just wanted to read what happened. But later, I bought the books when it came out in English. So I wanted to buy the books, they just weren't published yet. So the hope is that if anyone, for instance, gets a copy of the book for free as a PDF, that they'll enjoy it so much that they go back and want to give me, like, let's say, a tip. I'm
Right.
okay with that.
And I know that a lot of people do that with manga. They'll read the chapters as they're coming out online, but then when the books come out, they'll buy them and then have a whole shelf ready for it.
Yeah, I've had to clean out my old manga collection. I used to have so many, and I decided to donate them to my libraries because I figured that's one way to boost the next generation of manga readers. Like I've had hundreds and hundreds of volumes of everything, and I've only kept what like would hurt me to get rid of. But even that stuff, I think slowly I'm going to start trying to donate that too.
Yeah, I've definitely read a fair portion of manga in the libraries. So,
I was really heartened. I don't want to keep you on for too long if you have other things you want to do. I'm so sorry.
fine.
Um, my local library started carrying a lot of manga these past few years, and I've been really happy to see that. I think that's, if we're talking about investing in the future of comics, that's a massive way to do it.
Mm.
Sometimes it means older manga can get in the hands of some younger readers, which I don't like. Like Battle Royale was in the same shelf as Dragon Ball, and I don't think a younger person should have easy access to Battle Royale. But
Right.
I guess the librarians didn't know. Like they don't actually open the books to realize, oh crap, there's like a violent.
Well, they usually give a rating down in the manga, right?
Yeah, I don't know if the librarians pay attention. Like some libraries have a children's section. I'm thinking of a strip and problematic where this happened to the main character, Greg, where like he had to go to the comics section in the children's section to get manga. But then all these like mothers are staring at him like, why is a grown man in in this children's section reading books with nudity in it? What? But it's like I didn't put Battle Royale in the children's section. I wanted to get this book, let's say. Why is Ghost in the Shell in the children's section?
I have no idea. Usually I see a manga in the young adult section most of all.
Okay. Yeah, every library, I guess, is different, the way that they set it up. But
Right.
the good news is, yeah, they've been growing those sections. And if I go to Barnes and Noble, there's a lot of manga.
Yeah, it's a good bit. They're more pricey at Barnes and Noble though. They're like $13, whereas they would normally be 10.
Oh, they raised the price.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, when I was big in manga, into manga, it was $10.
Yeah, it's normally always $10. It's just, Barnes and Noble.
Man, pricing is something that I struggle with. Like I'm thinking about how to deal with this campaign for Mary Sue. I don't know how to price the books because printing in color is really expensive.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. It's something I got to think about, I guess. But like, I guess if is the digital version, you think, for the readers satisfactory? Like,
As
and
opposed to having a book in their hand.
well, all right. So if I publish in issues, um, they'll be expensive, I think, just because when you order a small print run, it's way more per unit. Um, but like, people can read the PDF version issue by issue, and then if they want a printed volume, they can get the volume when it comes out. Let's say. I'm just talking through it, talking to myself again. I'm sorry.
It's fine.
I keep going back and forth, but running these campaigns can be really stressful.
Oh yeah.
Watching the numbers go up and doing all these like shows and interviews, and
It's a full-time job.
it really is. And on top of my already full-time job. So, oh geez. No complaints though. It's been really fun, and I'm very curious to see what happens with this. I'm told that it's in good shape. People are interested, I guess.
Yeah, I think so.
And now that you know the story, no one's gonna buy it.
They're gonna be like, "Oh man, I wanted some cool mech fights, and it's a romance story."
It is a romance story smuggled into a mech battle manga.
There you go.
Well, half the story, like issue 2, all of issue 2 is a giant fight, nonstop fight. So if there's going to be a balance between, like Cowboy Bebop, I guess. There's a little bit of talking, romance, and then crazy battles. All the way to the end. That's my hope. But the important thing is to, even if this story finishes up, like I need people to want to read the next ones.
Right.
When Mary Sue finishes, I have another story, for instance, called as a joke, I called it Soy World. It was so stupid. But a lot of people responded. I was so surprised when I told them the premise. I was like, oh crap, I have to do this next. But I just don't want the drama right now. So I put that on the shelf for another few months. And I was also thinking about just publishing the scripts with illustrations. I don't know if people would buy that. I wonder.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good feedback. Thank you.
That's a risk, for sure.
That is what's risk?
Well, I don't think illustrated novels are really that great in comparison to comics.
Okay.
Not that I haven't bought them before.
No, that's important to know. It's true.
Right.
I'm just being lazy because I'm thinking like if and when I decide, like I don't know if I can do this as a full-time job. If I can't, then I just straight up don't have time to make comics full-time. I just can't do it. So I'm trying to think of other ways to publish these stories. I'll have to figure it out.
Right. I think it helps to have like a team together so you're not pulling all the weight on your own.
But you can't have them work for free.
No.
Gotta pay them.
Invest.
All right, so I'll do an Indiegogo. Pay my assistants to draw this story. I think I'll do that. Or work for exposure. Artists love doing that.
Oh, do they?
I've heard.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Did you happen to have time to read the probl-o-matic collection?
Not the whole thing, no.
Oh, okay. Well, another time I'd be curious to hear what you think of it.
Right. I'll post a review.
Okay. Yeah, well, I guess those are my questions. The end result of all of this feedback is that I'm going to have to treat the romance stuff more carefully if I want to impress lady readers.
Right. You can always send some stuff to me. I'm one harsh of a critic.
I know. When you reviewed Paris, I was like, dang. But all of the things you said were fair, and that's good.
Right.
Okay. All right. Maybe I'll do that then. I'm gonna think about that. I'll have some editing going on. Like, oh, this dialogue sucks. This is not romantic.
Right. I think dialogue is definitely like the hardest part when it comes to romance.
Well, it's tough. Like a lot of shoujo manga, I'm looking at my love story again. I'm like, this story writes itself because he's like this giant gorilla man, and I'm sure the main girl that he's after is like this little waif.
Oh yeah, she's like this little petite, cute girl.
So the romantic thing about it is that it's just that dynamic of he's this giant rough dude, but he has a soft side.
Right.
So it's getting her to see it. Oh man,
Exactly.
I really want to read this.
Go for it. I have the first volume myself.
I'm going to my local Barnes and Noble later. I'm gonna look it up. Well, because part of the thing with writing is in order to creativity is like fuel. You gotta consume good work to produce good work.
Oh yeah. Whenever I'm like about to write something romancy, I just watch a boatload of romance shows.
Mhm.
Definitely anime, since there's such a wide variety of it.
Have you released your work yet?
Oh, I have a lot of older stuff, and the newest thing I worked on was this comic Absent Minded that I only have up on the Patreon right now.
Uh-huh.
But you know, my artwork is a bit rough. It needs some more fine tuning.
So you see it as a comic. You want to eventually draw it, or you are drawing it.
Oh, I've drawn it.
Oh,
It's
it's
all
done.
done stuff. Yeah.
Hmm.
I was originally working on this one web comic way back when my art was even more rough. And I never got around to finishing that, but I planned for it to be like a really long series. So there was no way I was going to finish it with my art looking like that.
That's so cool, though. Are you getting enough funding on your Patreon that you can do it full time?
Oh no, not never full time, but it's enough on the side at least.
I would say, I know nothing about this, but you are in a very good position with this channel, for instance. If you were to promote it, and maybe I'm just talking again at my butt, but I am desperate to get more like lady creators and good other kinds of genres besides superheroes. I would love to see a book published by you.
Oh,
No, I just want to encourage you. Please go for it. And
yeah.
I think because you have a lot of people listening to your channel, I'm sure they would love to see copies of that book.
Well, one would hope.
I think so. No?
I'll give it a try at some point in my life. Start pushing more stuff. Please read my things.
No, you don't have to say it like that. You come forward with confidence. I made a good comic. Read it. If you
Right.
don't read it, you're missing out. Do you have like formal training in art and stuff at all?
Uh, Not really. Art was one of those things where like I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it, so I would pick it up, practice a bunch, put it down, then
Mhm.
years later pick it up again and then put it down and then so I didn't really like practice all my life. So I think that's why I'm falling behind now. You know,
Uh, do you feel good about your writing?
I feel pretty good about my writing overall.
So the only thing stopping you is art.
For the most part, I guess.
Okay.
But I also know a lot of artist friends, and I know that some of them would help me out if I ever wanted to team up and do something.
Okay.
But
Well,
like I
if
said,
there's,
working with a team.
why not?
Yeah.
Well, I hope you pursue it then. I really want to know, like, if and when you release anything, please let me know.
Oh, 100% definitely.
I mean, this isn't even like an SJW thing. Like, I want more lady creators. It's really important for the future of comics. There need to be more lady creators and not like indoctrinated lady creators. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you like this genre, I'm sure you will make a great story.
Yeah.
Good.
Maybe I'll send you Absent Minded so you can get a feel of things I've written before.
I'd love that. Please.
Sure thing.
Man.
We can exchange.
That sounds great to me. I think, yeah, if there's been no other subject because of my meandering to this interview or whatever this was, I want more comics to exist in America or in the English language, and I'm desperate to see a flourishing of like a new generation of creators. It kills me that shops are closing. There's no reason. People like comics. We just have to figure out how to get them in the hands of people, I think.
Right.
And that is all I have to say on that subject.
Well, all right then. We gotta get to work, guys.
That's right. All of you creators, it's time. I'm calling for a revolution. The manga revolution. These comics, American comics people have been in positions of power for too long. We what's the word we use for ourselves these days? We Japan lovers.
Weeaboos.
That's negative, isn't it?
Otakus, I don't know. There's a bunch of different words.
The kikomoris. We need to rise up. Come out of our hikikomori caves and show Marvel and DC what for.
It's time to take over.
Oh. I'm pumped. I'm gonna do it. As soon as I get off this call, I'm gonna go back to drawing. Unfortunately, it's well, it's kind of tasteless drawing, but that's okay. Because the main character's mentor is like a Master Roshi type of guy. So like
Perfect.
So he's not towards her. She's like a daughter to him.
Gotcha.
But he's by the pool trying to talk to these, babes, let's say. And he's trying to get it on, and she comes up like, "Oh, hey, can I hang out with you guys?" And he's like, "Get away from me." So
Daddy's trying to score, honey.
I love it though. Like she's such a derp that she doesn't understand he's trying to play the game. And she's like, "Hey, can I hang out with you on board on a luxury ship?"
Right.
I hope the comedy
that I would
through.
do as a kid.
It's really funny. I hope. I don't know.
I think it's funny.
Well, I'll send you stuff as I go. I want to hear what you think.
All right, sure thing.
All right, good.
And keep on posting.
I will. Let's see. All right. I will be touching base with you again then, and I'll send you stuff. And I am very interested in seeing your manga as well.
All right, sure thing.